Pleasure, mate.
No worries. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Christmas Day. Well, this is Christmas Eve. The cards are tomorrow, so aye, that's mad, isn't it?
Can't hear us, Quinny. They can't hear us on the live chat. No, like, it says audio.
I think, yeah, I'm on. Yeah, they should be able to hear yous. There we go. Should be fine now. Sorry.
You're on mute.
I was on mute for sure. You guys should have been fine.
I could hear you.
Aye.
Just Quinny says so.
Yeah, I think it was just me. Yeah. So
See,
guys, we're here.
You're glad. You're glad I'm here. You never read the chat, so that's you'd have been 5 minutes gone and been like, "Oh, you can't hear me."
Yeah. So 4 minutes, let's say 15 is when we start. Guys, we're live. The SPFL, Celtic, SoRare, everything's came together. We're finally here. We've got these digital goods finally getting unraveled and dropped into auctions all over the metaverse. Guys, do we have enough ETH? It's the main question on everyone's lips.
Nope.
No. No. Need more.
Mine's is all tied up in Gvardiol, but it's still a good buy. But it's just unfortunate timing, I guess.
Well, you picked up recently Gvardiol and Sucic, two biggies, you know.
Two big Croatian super rare young lads. ones for the future, but they're not quite as close to my heart as the Scottish cards are. So I'm a little bit gutted. I'm a little bit gutted.
That makes a bit low. Apparently.
Possible to keep a balance, but like you think I've got a balance, and then you see like the Euro cards drop or whatever, and you're like, nah, I'm just gonna buy somebody. So
yeah, well, I know we're all a bit motivated to shed some stuff off. I was actually thinking when I was on my way in here, I was like, how much would I take off a Pavel this morning? Like
gallery
for the whole thing, how much now today would I take off him? And I kind of wrestled with that for about an hour.
Like, just blast into like uniques and stuff. Like I was considering it.
just get.
I actually was just like buy everything in green and white. Like anyway, show my bias now, to be honest. But aye.
Well, the whole league I think will be good. You know, I think we were chatting about this before. I mentioned it on the member stream I did earlier today, but like the SPFL is a great league for so many different talents. You know, like some of the big names that we've seen in the last couple of years, like coming in on loan from big academies, like, you know, James Madison's probably the biggest one in recent times, but Celtic and Rangers have had lots of these kind of guys come and go, and so is the rest of the league. They come in from like the Premier League or the Cat 2 academies in England, and they come up here, they get first team football, and they're clearly a class above. So if you're maybe like an English fan, you know, or a Welsh fan, depending on who we're talking about, like Dylan Levitt, who's on loan from Man United at Dundee United, for example. If you're a Man United fan, he's got a card. He's one of the ones I think is on everybody's radar. It's not much of a secret, but it's good for getting into some of that kind of academy exposure, isn't it?
Yeah, Ben Woodburn's at Hearts, isn't he, as well? Ben Woodburn.
Yeah, I seen Woodburn. He's not got a card. I wasn't sure if he was still on loan from Liverpool or if they'd signed him or whatever.
I think there's a lot of Hearts cards missing. Like they've not got Craig Gordon either.
Oh, really?
So it's a bit of a shame. I think it's just a issue with getting the pictures or something. Because Dan said in Discord earlier that there will be like Joe Hart cards and stuff like that. So obviously just issues with certain things. So fingers crossed they'll get that sorted out. They do usually get it sorted out, but it's kind of a case of when now. So only 5 games left. So. Anyway.
You occasionally get little gems as well that pop up. Like if you remember, James Madison was on loan at Aberdeen a few years back. So if you'd managed to get his card when he was like sort of 19 or however old he was at the time, and then he carries through and he ends up, I think he went back to Norwich. He had a really good season in the Championship, and then he went on to Leicester, and obviously is like their main man now. So if you'd have been able to have a Madison card for like 5-6 years in advance, if you're able to do a bit of scouting, that's maybe something that the SPFL was actually quite good for. Yeah. It's not necessarily like a right here, right now league necessarily, unless you're looking at sort of Celtic and Rangers. But I don't really see people stacking like they do with like Mechlin, for example. People stack Mechlin players and hope they get that great fixture. It doesn't really work like that in Scottish football, I wouldn't say, unless you're like a genius and you can somehow predict the future.
They say like the St Johnstone stack's not going to win the Challenger. Sorry if there's any St Johnstone fans. That was just the name that came to my head there. Like, that is quite funny, isn't it? But I don't see them. I don't see Stevie May banging 90s whilst Witherspoon's banging 90s as well. It's going to be like a 60, a 40. The defence maybe gets 60s each, and then your goalkeeper, if he keeps clean sheet, there's another 60 or 70. So you're looking at like a score of like 350 or something. It's not gonna. I don't think it's gonna like worry anybody in Challenger. Whereas Celtic can go and have an average game, and you'll get 60s and 70s everywhere. And then if they have a great game, you seen it the other week. Was it 500 scores they had?
Yeah,
they're starting 11.
5 different scores and all that.
Like 7, that's not going to happen a lot. Like, I mean, Hearts are pretty good at home as well. Like some of the defenders are scoring pretty well and things. Just obviously, it's more of maybe a kind of defensive stack. It's just a shame they've not got Craig Gordon. But hopefully, they get Craig Gordon card at some point as well, because he'll probably just keep playing him. I don't know.
I think they'll do them in waves. I know some of them, like that Ben Woodburn doesn't have a picture at all. I don't know what the situation is with Craig Gordon, but I think when they've done like MLS in the past, and definitely with J&K, like it does feel like they've got like 3 batches of like auctions, if you know what I mean. So there's some obvious absentees across a lot of the squads when you look at them, and I think like, especially the ones you do have a picture for, it will just be a matter of time before they get in a wave of releases, I think.
I was a bit surprised not got like Joe Hart. Like obviously that's a major one, but
Jota as well. His card isn't out yet.
Happened with Leon Goretzka, didn't it? Remember there was like 4 or 5 months of the season there was no Leon G card because he'd missed the photo shoot or something. So it was like if we got the whole league on, then you would hope that they'd be able to tidy that type of stuff up. But it's down to availability as well. So
yeah. So, I actually, again, I've seen some people on Twitter, and I want to get your guys' thoughts on this in terms of the Challenger region. I don't play Challenger myself, that will change now, probably, but a lot of people think Challenger is now potentially going to be too crowded or too like overpowered in terms of how you're going to be able to get into the prizes, when there's a stack in every country, basically, for the Challenger teams. There is a dominant team in every country, so my thoughts on it, first of all, is I think the addition of the league will increase the prize pool to a decent amount as well. I think that's been underestimated. Maybe at this point it is a full new team of 12. We noticed when we had Austria came on and something else, that the Challenger rewards are always quite juicy compared to the other regions, and this is only going to enhance that. A lot of tier 3s, yeah, sure. Not too many U23s in this pool either, so a lot of them will be Challenger only as well as global payouts. But I'm actually now quite excited to play Celtic cards and maybe try and win, like air quotes, like a Gravenberch or a Gakpo with Celtic cards. I think that's like quite exciting, quite appealing.
Yeah.
I think it's just an odd one in terms of there's every Challenger region that you're going to open up. It's a common theme of all these regions that you've got one or two dominant teams, or you've maybe got three dominant teams if you're in Portugal, for example. This kind of works the same. It's the same with all teams around the world. It's just the fact that the higher level of competition you get to, generally there's more teams that can compete. And the higher level of football that's being played, like you always talk about Marseille, Quinny. They're not necessarily second every year,
yeah.
But some of their football, so I was watching the other night, is very conducive to SO5. So there's a lot of passing involved, for example, a lot of diagonals over to their wingers. The wingers were doing a lot of take-ons and stuff like that, and they're generally a decent enough scoring team. And it's just due to they've got enhanced quality over, say, for example, we were just talking about St Johnstone, right? When St Johnstone have a good game, you're still probably not looking at massive all-round scores. You're just mainly looking at if they're getting maybe 3 or 4 decisives in the match, then that's more conducive to where they're getting their scores from. Whereas these champion teams, if they start to put together the all-rounds and the decisives, you're popping off with 80s, 90s, 100s, and then when you start to put together small stacks of that, and there's just generally more choice across, like more quality of choice. So that's why Challengers kind of, it's good in a way, but like you said, it's going to suffer more for these people who just don't have the budgets to start buying star level players or tier 1 level players, because tier 2s and 3s realistically, should they really ever be competing at the top of a division? That's kind of another question, I guess.
Yeah.
What about you, McBride? I think you were close to winning Challenger, or you've won every division, I think, at this point, haven't you?
I was pretty close that weekend. 4th, I think, came. Yeah, I mean, Challenger's an interesting one. There's 2 different things happened recently. Zagreb came on, but when Zagreb came on, they only brought on Zagreb.
Yeah.
So they brought on all these great cards, good defenders, really good stacks, so a good goalkeeper, good defenders, and obviously the midfielders do well. Plus, you get guys like Orsic. They never brought on the rest of the league. The thing with Celtic is a lot of the attackers that kind of already are on, maybe not so much limited, but guys like Hatate, Jota, Maeda have all got limited rares and super rares. Probably more so like the kind of defensive side of things, where you've got guys who are like putting in good all-around scores and everything in the defence. I don't think it'll be big a difference as people think. I mean, Challenger's really competitive, but I mean, yeah, I'm playing Champion all the time, and I find Champion harder than Challenger. I guess it just depends the guys you've got and from what teams and stuff. But the Challenger rewards, I've noticed, like in the Pro, for example, like Challenger rewards like 70 cards in the Pro, and like at one point there was 45 in Champion. So as long as there's enough rewards given out, I think it should still be okay. So what they really need to get right is, if it's really competitive, is giving out enough cards basically. And if you've got full leagues on, like, you'll have like loads more goalies available and everything now. So the plus side, I think, is that goalkeepers are obviously a fortune, but you might be able to pick up somebody from Livingston, somebody from Dundee United.
Yep.
And like guys,
they're the kind of goalkeepers. There's a good point though. The goalkeepers who, like you see it in Belgium all the time, when they have a good game, they have an absolute stormer. So they're going to score an 85 because they've got 8 saves, and that, like, they've been very responsible. They might go and score a 15 the next week, and give you a headache. But that's just the kind of, you're paying for what you get. You're not paying for the consistency of 60s each week. You're paying for the 15 or 85, the banker bust kind of thing.
Some of them might end up in the Championship or something as well. I mean, obviously,
yep.
So say his name now because I've mentioned him, Sigris, but like he's been awesome against Celtic and regionally. I think he had a game against Celtic where he must have scored about 200. I mean, he was outrageous, but like he he could go to the Championship or he could go back to Switzerland or whatever, you know. But there are good players about. I mean, you used to remember like a way back in Dundee had Julian Speroni and stuff. You know, he ended up playing with Crystal Palace and he was a hero and he was doing really well. So, you know, you got to kind of look at some of these things and look at what potentially could happen as well. A lot of Scottish players do go to the Championship as well. Sometimes they go to the MLS too.
Yeah.
You know, like Lewis Morgan coming to Celtic, going to the MLS. So you've got kind of angles like that as well. So it's interesting. Get the whole league on. It's really good because imagine like you got Andy Robertson when he was playing with Dundee United.
John McGinn at Hibs.
John McGinn at Hibs. There's loads of players like that. Obviously, Billy Gilmore would have been too young for a card, but he came through at Rangers, didn't he? So
I think Gold made his debut at like 16, 17. You could have been on him right for the start. You could have had like that whole Dundee United team with like Armstrong and even Chifchi at one point was absolutely unplayable. And these guys were all like, they had a really young team. Like, I know we're talking like 10 years ago or whatever, but that you could actually had like a pretty realistic Dundee United under 23 stack at one point. Because they were that good.
They were really good. I mean, they were playing good football and scoring loads of goals and everything as well. I mean, look at like Livingston. Obviously, like Livingston are a kind of funny team, but like playing at home, plastic pitch. Sometimes they're pretty good defensively. Like, so I don't even know who the Livingston goalkeeper is, but sometimes they go through runs have been quite solid. St Johnstone not been as good this year, but they won 2 cups, and at one point they were doing loads of clean sheets and stuff. So, you know, there definitely are. And it's just the same as like Belgium. Like sometimes, you know, a club comes up, they do really well, Beerschot doing really well, next season they're getting relegated. And that's similar in Scotland, isn't it? So the only thing you got to watch, I guess, is a lot of clubs like Motherwell never have anybody under contract for any length of time. So they like kind of regurgitate players every year. So you might get somebody that's doing well and they end up in League One or something in England. So you know, got to be kind of careful about the quality you're buying. But
the League One death trap for sure is real.
League One's going to be a killer to a lot of cards down there. I was just going to say, Quinny, there was a couple of questions. I don't know if you want to go through them. Someone say, what's next for Sean Moloney? Probably not very much, sitting on his arse because he's done nothing. Somebody asked, they said, do you think that Challenger possibly becomes overpowered with stacking? Do you think they should do what they do in Specialist League 2 from the same team? I don't know if that would then overlap with Specialist.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is maybe they could move into having a, you know, we've got Challenger Rare Pro. They could have Challenger Rare Specialist as well, like just have it as another one, but then that's another division that you need to feed rewards into and kind of take out. So it's one of those ones, maybe you just keep all the tail end tier 2s and 3s for that stuff. I don't know, but
see, if you do with stacking stuff, like I've been running some stacks now because I was kind of one of the ones that started saying I don't like all this stacking and stuff, and obviously you get games where Celtic won 7-0, Bayern won 6-0, all that sort of stuff. My Bayern stack's done shite. I mean, every time they have a good game defensively, it's very rare they have you get a really good game defensively and offensively. I mean, sometimes they'll just bash somebody up and they've just dominated the game, but you'll find you'll get good games where like you'll have like an optimal defensive stack and an attacking stack. So I prefer going 3 and 2. So I think if they said tomorrow it's maximum 3 from each team, it wouldn't change any of my teams at all. But I know there's folk that just run Liverpool stacks or whatever, but I think it is kind of in people's heads. Like, say for example, you say you're not allowed a stack, so you know at Champion that means people kind of run Leverkusen stacks or they kind of run a Hoffenheim stack or whatever. So actually, like, you're probably better to leave stacks in place because one of these teams winning 3 or 4-0 and having their day is probably a better chance than somebody trying to pick 5 guys from tier 2s to fucking hit 70 or 80 in the same week. I mean, it's impossible to do that sometimes, I think, anyway. So it's not just a case of saying just ban stacks. Like, I think, you know, there's more to it than that, like just saying ban stacks.
Yeah, I think one thing I've noticed by looking through the stats in the Scottish League is like it's quite a, you know, it's a really dual heavy, you know, division. You know, when you look at the stats, what the players get generally per 90 and success rates, all that kind of stuff. And when you look at, see when you really drill into any midfielder or defender that I've looked at so far anyway, when you drill into the games where they get like 40 on all round, they've had like 8 interceptions and they've won 15 duels or something, you know, because it's just been a pure fight of a match, you know, and somehow like this guy in midfield has just came out top trumps.
Yeah, a lot of these battles are won and lost in midfield. You see it a lot of the time in the highlights packages, like where it's won and lost. There's very rarely you very rarely see like a playmaker come and play in Scotland because the games are played at 1,000,000 miles an hour. You've not got time. You've not got time and space for a playmaker to come up and make a difference. The pitches, like you said, you've got plastic pitches, you've got bobbly pitches, you've got teams like playing against any team that plays Celtic and Rangers is just going to sit 10 men behind the ball. And again, that means that these people are racking up like 6-7 passes a match. It's nothing. And even like the sort of highly contested games, you're not going to see a team that's particularly possession dominant because the teams just aren't good enough quality to do that. So like you said, you're going to see a lot of turnover, and it's just who can essentially win those turnovers, who's winning the most duels, who's getting the tackles in and stuff like that. And then if someone, say it's a centre mid that can pop up with a wee sort of decisive or something, then you know what I mean, you're laughing. Someone like a Lewis Ferguson, for example, because he's got penalties, he's got set pieces, so he's got that enhanced chance of getting the decisive. And then at the same time, he's also a combative midfielder who goes box to box. So I'd imagine he'll be pretty keenly priced because he's still under 23 next season.
He'll be. He's one of the first uniques going out as well. So you know the first three uniques
they're not stupid.
Calmac, Turnbull, and Fergie. You know
they're not daft. They've put out them three for a reason.
Best three Scottish mids, basically.
You know, I think as well, like a lot of the league's pretty close just now, but like some season you get like maybe an Aberdeen team that's only like say 10 points behind Celtic and Rangers and stuff. Problem just now is Celtic and Rangers are miles ahead. But that could change because, like, you know, Hearts got a couple of loans in or pick up a couple of good players. Or like Hibs obviously sold, was it Boyle to Saudi for like 3 million, and then bought a couple of sort of Norwegian youngsters, and it changes quite quickly. But the issue just now probably with Scotland is like out with Celtic and Rangers. There's nobody you would really strongly fancy to win any game of football at all without any of the games. So it's a wee bit like
it's interesting you said that because like now with things like the Conference League, so Hearts are guaranteed group stage football, so they're guaranteed 8 games in Europe next season. They're in the Europa League qualifier, so they could get the groups there and then possibly even drop back down to the conference. But the main part being they're getting an extra £3 million in terms of revenue. That money's going to like the most because a lot of these clubs like nowadays are fairly self-sufficient. Obviously there will be losses being made somewhere, but they're not to anywhere near the point of what they were maybe like the mid-2000s. So a lot of these teams are like very self-sufficient or maybe even have like fan ownership. So getting £3 million into a team like Hearts who are fan-owned essentially, or they've got a big influence with the foundation of Hearts, that's going to go straight back into the playing squad. So like you just said, this season they brought in people like Barry Mackay, who's really impressed. Ben Woodburn, he started really well. I think he's kind of tailed off a bit.
Barry Mackay's class, isn't he? I mean, he's been really good.
He's been fantastic, yeah. I went and actually I watched the Hearts game.
Cunha, man. Oh, I don't know. Don't know if I'll be a big chance for this or not, but sorry. Sorry. Oh, yeah, bugger, man. 89 minutes.
Somebody had died there.
Oh, man. 6 yards out, back to goal, got the ball at the feet, and he's like spun and shot, and the way the ball went with the camera and that, the keeper made a save, but I thought he maybe scored, he didn't. Sorry. I'm chasing a super rare team down. So
I've only got you have only got 6 minutes left in this.
I know, I spotted that as well. So the stream will end, guys, in 6 minutes. But last thing I want to say on that, sorry, just before we kind of move on. But see when you see how the stats are all kind of racked up with everything you guys are saying as well in terms of dominant teams can kind of come out of left field a little bit, is that I think there'll be a lot of these underdog-esque players that can have a massive day in the sun if the fixture's right, you know, because I say some of these guys, when I'm looking at them, you know, they might have like 100 score, a 90 score or whatever, but it is like all AA. Like some of these guys, when the game goes their way, and I say they do win like 15 duels and get like 8 interceptions and stuff, their all-round is like 60 points, and it's like an attacking mid with no decisive and a booking and no clean sheet and stuff, you know, it's crazy. So I think this league will be really good for bringing out a lot of these random kind of like, oh, this guy's normally a 45 average, but he scored 90 this week, you know, because Livingston were at home, or you know, Hearts were playing away at St Mirren, or you know, whatever it might be.
Hearts on Celtic 82 points, Rangers 76, Hearts on 57. So there's a massive difference, and always Hearts have only got a goal difference of plus 15, so the rest of the league is quite close. But you know, Hearts are a really good team at home. Like Tynecastle's a hard place to go, and they do tend to dominate teams. I mean, even been games where they've dominated Celtic and stuff there, so you get stuff like that as well. So you really watch out for that, like places that are like guys who have got good home records. Like,
it's so important to actually remember. Like Livingston at the Spaghetti had at the Tony at the Tony Macaroni Arena. Yeah, really good, because obviously they play compact, and they actually play good football as well. If you watch them against teams that aren't Celtic or Rangers, they actually play decent at home. And then even teams like when Kilmarnock were up, they've got a plastic pitch as well. They had a good home record for quite a long time, especially under Steve Clarke, because of the style of football that he played, very defensive. And then just trying to think, obviously Hamilton, I don't think they ever had a good home record, but it's just like it was a hard place for teams to go again because of the plastic pitch, and it's just like because there's like no home fans, it's a total weird atmosphere as well. But thankfully, you don't have to contest with a couple of them anymore.
You'd expect Hibs to improve a bit as well, because Hibs are generally quite a good team at home too. Not that they're in the bottom half and everything just now, but they get a bit of money in recently too, so you'd expect they'll improve, and they've got a good few like decent young players like Doig and stuff as well. So if they get them in the team, get them firing a wee bit more, then they could definitely be top half next season. So they're in this year. So
you've got Nisbet to come back, and they've got that Boyle money. I don't think they've really like reinvested it into like somebody right for here and now.
Yeah.
So they've got the summer to go and say, all right, well, we've actually got a nice amount in there. Ron Gordon was just on the radio today, just saying Maloney was a bit rushed in terms of bringing him in. Basically, he didn't say it, but he basically said that they shouldn't have let Jack Ross go. Essentially, what they were getting at. So they're going to probably, I'd imagine, bring in an experienced manager, and they're going to allow him to build a decent squad in summer. So yeah, they'll bounce back. You
find the clubs with the bigger catchment areas, even when they do like kind of struggle financially, sometimes a random player or two just does come out of the academy, because it's a bit harder for like Ross County to recruit a lot of amazing youth talents because it's a really widespread area, and maybe they end up going to Aberdeen or somewhere else, yada yada, whatever. But like Hearts, Hibs, Dundee clubs, even Motherwell being in the Central Belt, a lot of these clubs, like even if there doesn't always look like there's stuff going on, they can surprise you really quickly with a loan signing like we spoke about, and like some of these like younger kids that can pop up out of nowhere, it feels like.
Yeah, Dundee United have produced loads of good players, haven't they? So they've got a couple of young rookie cards on as well, which basically I know absolutely nothing about whatsoever. But
same.
Like they do bring through some good players, and I know we've been very biased, but hope we do get Rangers as well. Like, because I think that like getting Rangers to Celtic Rangers thing, it adds to the rivalry, and imagine you've got like people will not like it because Celtic Rangers are so good, but having Celtic stacks and Rangers stacks running in the banter on Twitter and everything, that's like that'll be brilliant.
Agreed.
But for now, they're not on, so we'll just need to win the league and celebrate.
Love it. Guys, we've got less than 2 minutes left. Do you want to give me some final thoughts of day one SPFL? What's the first card like? Let's say tomorrow, right? There's a bunch of limiteds. What's the limited that you're after the tomorrow, if there is one? I don't know.
I
know mine, because I'm looking to buy mine. I don't know if I want to let it go yet, though. Don't know what to say.
I think I'm going to buy Starfelt.
Starfelt limited.
He's slagging him all season, but he's pretty solid, and Vickers Celtic don't own. So, people want to pay 1.1F for him. If he was with Celtic next season, then pretty much there, but we'll go buy a Celtic defender and go for Starfelt.
What about you, Hendo? Who are you going for the morning?
I think I'm going to go for Segrist if I can afford him. Just because he's out of contract in the season. He could easily stay, but even if he doesn't stay, like you said, Championship, he could go to Rangers, he could go back to Switzerland. That's kind of his main options. So they're all scored leagues. So it'd just be a good he's just a really good quality goalkeeper. So if he can get a good defence behind him, then I think he's a solid pickup. But we'll see how much he goes for. I'm not going to dive in and pay ridiculous amounts because challenger keepers aren't.
0.2 more now that you've mentioned them, Ross.
I'm just going to say before we finish off, I am going to be going for Scott Bain.
Scott Bain?